with the metaphor from the Zohar on how we can create the light, a divine light in our lives. And I'd like to use a metaphor, the good, the bad, and the ugly, which usually is a metaphor, or is, I don't know, a metaphor, but a reality of a person's life. You have things that are good, you have things that are bad, and you have things that are ugly in your life. I'd like to go a step further with that metaphor and say that that's not about life and our engagement in life, but actually it's about ourselves. We have the good in us, we have the bad, and we have the ugly. Just my take on it, those words. So hopefully we'll have a deeper understanding of how we can bring the divine in us using those three elements. You would think, well, the good, that will be the way to bring the divine and, leave out the ugly and even the bad. But no. We're going to explain it differently. And it's based on the metaphor from the Zohar that we need to create a light in our lives, a divine light. We need fuel. We need a wick, which is a conduit to hold the fuel, in order that on top of that conduit, the wick, we have the light that emerges, that divine light. So, what we explained till now is the fuel is good deeds, a mitzvah, which is the inner will of God, what he really wants. God's not a tree hugger. Sorry. Might not be PC to say that. He didn't create the world for trees. He didn't create it for animals. He created it for me and you, that we could do a mitzvah, that we could connect to the inner will of God and to bring that divine light in our lives. Now, how's it done? It's done through the wick, which is the body. And then we create the light that envelops us, incorporates us. Now, let's understand who the players are over here. What's the good in me? What's the bad in me? And what's the ugly in me? The good in me is my divine soul. That's the good. The bad in me is my animal soul. Now, when we say bad, there's bad, but there's a mixture of good. There's no bad in this world that doesn't have some good in it. No good in it that doesn't have some bad in it. So the mixture of the good and bad is the animal soul, which primarily is bad. Why? Because it has its own agenda that covers over its vitalities of klipa, a shell that covers over on the divine in us. So I say that as the bad. And then there's the ugly. What's the ugly? What's the ugly in me is that I am selfish, self-centered, and that comes from my body. Now, I'm going to talk about the fact of your body. The fact of your body houses your soul. But the agenda of the body, the agenda of the body, the self-centeredness of the body. When I'm hungry, my body feels the hunger pangs. It only feels mine. It will not feel yours. I will not feel your pain from my perspective of the body. Only from the perspective of my soul can I feel your pain and feel you and be connected to you. So what do we have over here? Then, so the good is the divine soul. The bad is the animal soul because it's mainly negative, but there's some good in there, right? There's some good, as we'll explain a little more. And then we have, again, the ugly, which is the nature of the body, that it's selfish. That's ugly, right? Again, your body only knows its own hunger. It doesn't know somebody else's hunger, not the body. The soul in me does, but not my body. My body only knows about its own comfort. Only. That's selfish. That's ugly. Okay? That's how I'm defining it. But the amazing thing here is what the Alter Rebbe tells us next. Is yes, we have those three players in us, but you know what? I need all of them in order I can make the divine, I can bring the light of the divine in my life. And I can connect to God in a real way. How so? So the ugly, as we're saying over here, right? The body that has completely an agenda of its of selfishness of its own, for its own self-directedness, is the conduit in the metaphor. It is the wick that creates the light. That's pretty powerful. Does I need to have it? Why? What then motivates the body that it should engage in doing the mitzvah? So it works like this. The divine soul is a very abstract and lofty part of me. It cannot motivate my body. It's too removed from it. One's completely spiritual, one is completely physical. And therefore, what do I need? Something in between. There's a sort of a mix of in between, and that's my animal soul. The animal soul that is got mainly bad, but also has goodness in it. And therefore, the divine soul inspires the animal soul, that the animal soul gives vitality to my body to do an act of a mitzvah that brings now a divine light into my life. We're learning Torah right now. In learning Torah, we're not engaged the physical reality of our being. Our body is not engaged. It's our minds that we understand. We're thinking. We may speak words of Torah. But when you're doing a physical act of a mitzvah, extending your arm to give charity, you're extending yourself to help another. You're putting on the act of putting on tefillin, the very physical act, not the spiritual thing behind it, but the very physical act of a mitzvah. That engages not just my thoughts, not just my speech, but my physical reality and my physical body. In the moment of doing that mitzvah, I am creating that divine light. So what am I engaged in over here? The good is my divine soul that all it can do is inspire me. It can't do the mitzvah. It's too abstract, it's too ethereal, it's too spiritual. So it can't do it. What do I need? I need my body to do it. A physical act, I have to engage my body. Now that ugly thing that is selfish, all of a sudden now is the conduit to creating a divine light in my life. That's pretty powerful. So whereas, the rest of the world will, where the rest of the world is, so the rest of the world is engaged, that the body is ugly. And here Jewish teaching says, no, the body in its agenda and its nature is, but it is the vehicle, it is the conduit that's going to bring the light of God into your life. Why? Because it's engaged in doing an action-oriented mitzvah, that through that it becomes a conduit that's given vitality by the animal soul and inspired by the godly soul. And what happens? There's the light of God in your life. This is what the Alter Rebbe explains in a brief teachings today, that you're literally bound up in one with the divine. And only using that selfish body could you now make it into a vehicle for something that's divine. That's amazing. That is a beautiful thought. Our study Torah is great, but it doesn't incorporate the physical reality of me. Because Torah study is, whatever we learn, I hope you're thinking it, understanding it. That's all of the spiritual nature of our beings. And even when it comes to speech, even when it comes to speaking, it is still not the physical reality. But when you extend your arm in giving tzedakah, giving charity, you're literally now using your physical body, as we said, the ugly, that's infused with the bad, which we said was the animal soul, which is motivated by the good, the godly soul, to do ultimately a selfless action that connects us to God, that brings a divine light in our lives. That is today's Tanya, very powerful teaching. So if anybody on Facebook wants to share something, I know now that, please do. And Clubhouse, anybody wants to ask something, please do. Ari, thank you for joining. Joe is divinely inspired. Mohammed, shalom to you. Where are you coming from, Mohammed? Thank you for joining. Marty in Florida, thank you for joining. Marjan, she's in school in Atlanta with my daughters, teaching together. Thank you for saying hello. Please say hello to my daughters. Rena from Colorado says very powerful. Yes. As I've mentioned many times, every day there's such a novel teachings that the Alter Rebbe gives us. It's very powerful. So here you heard it first, the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's not about your life experience. It's about us. And the beautiful thing over here is, even the ugly of me is a divine conduit is the conduit for a divine light in my life. Right? Whereas other places, the ugly, you gotta push away. And of course, it's sometimes the ugly part we do, but here, the novel teaching is that it's incorporated in the divine. Irma says, I know now that they're all three, which is the animal soul, the divine soul that inspires me, and the body are a conduit to be an active in mitzvah, so I can bring the light of the divine in my life and in my world. Beautiful. Very well said. Okay, Eugenia says, in Calgary, I know now that engaging selfish body into an act of performing a physical mitzvah draws divine light into the physical reality. Beautiful. Joe says, and it's not a Clint Eastwood movie. That's right, it's not. It is living reality. Oh, who is with us over here? Someone, please join me on Clubhouse. And if you have a question about the good, the bad, and the ugly that we just learned about, Miriam says it's inspirational. Okay. Anybody on Clubhouse, please. Ezra, welcome. Margarita, welcome. Joe and Mark. So we just have a few new people that just joined us in Clubhouse, just Clubhouse folks. We're on Facebook at the same time, learning Jewish mysticism from the Tanya. We just spoke about the good, the bad, and the ugly. That it's not about life experience, but it's actually about us, that we have those three elements in our lives. The good is the divine soul in me. The bad is the animal soul. Bad because it covers over on the true reality of who I am and what life is. The light in our lives, the animal soul, because it's the animal instinct. And bad, but it has a mixture of good in it. As everything since this, in this world, that there's nothing that is bad that doesn't have some good in it, and there's nothing that is good that doesn't have some bad in it. So that's the animal soul. And the ugly, as we explained it, is the selfishness of me. That's ugly. And where's the selfishness come from? The body. The body is selfish. I only feel my hunger, but I don't feel your hunger from the perspective of my body. I only feel my need for pleasure from my body. I don't feel your need, whatever it might be. Right? From the soul, I do feel your needs, and I do feel your hunger, and I do feel, but not from the body. The body is selfish. So the beautiful thing over here, again, is what Tanya is teaching us is that we incorporate all three and to bring a divine light into our lives. The good in me, the divine soul, inspires me to do good, to be good. But it can't do it alone. It then inspires the animal soul to invigorate the body, that the body now becomes the conduit to stretch your arm and care for another. Stretch your arm and give charity. Stretch your arm to help another person. Stretch your arm to put on your tefillin. The very act itself is now bringing a divine light into our lives and into the world. Powerful idea. So, anybody has a question? Anybody would like to add something to this? So, opening up to Clubhouse, please do. All right, on Facebook. Betsy is watching in Chicago. All right, thank you for joining. Who else is with us? Linda says, I know now that mitzvahs are the inner will of God and good in my divine soul. Okay. Who else is here with us to share? Karen. Susan is with us from Scranton, Pennsylvania. Karen in Ohio. Yeah, so can you imagine just a little simple act? I was just taking a coin and putting it into a charity box, into a pushka, is bringing the divine that connects us literally in that physical act with the divine. And taking that, the nature and the nature of the body that is, again, very selfish, and that's, as we're explaining, ugly, and allowing it to now be a vehicle, a conduit, to bring something divine into our lives, which is a very powerful idea. Okay, Irma and St. Martin. I know now that 3 animals. Okay, we mentioned that. Very good. All right, folks. Hirsch, thank you for joining, and Margarita, Ezra, thank you all for joining. Mindel, Mark, and Dave, Shayna Beryl, Ari, and Zalman, and Rabbi Yisrael. Okay, all of you, thank you. And if no one has anything more to share with me,